flexibility under section 45(4). Friends, we have our own Ashok Sharma as a group leader. We all know Ashok Bhai. Ashok Sharma was a chairman of this committee for last almost 6 years and 5 consecutive years in fact. He is a scholar. And what is scholar? Scholar is a person who is a student for throughout his life. And Ashok Sharma, we all know, is a passionate student. He will attend almost all lecture meetings or study circles, etc. Further, he collects knowledge like a honey bee, and he does not distribute often. In last 5 to 6 years, I have not seen him, delivering a lecture like this. I think we are all fortunate that today Ashok Sharma is going to lead this lecture meeting at this study circle. Of course, he keeps his knowledge like a watch under a sleeve, which he shows only when it is required. Also, we have with us our past president Vipul Bhai. I don't need no need to introduce him or say anything about Vipul Bhai, because Vipul Bhai, we all know, he has been chairman for several times in this August Talk gathering. So with this small remarks, I would just hand it over to Harish Bhai for take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Yatin Bhai. I welcome you to the Direct Tax Study Circle meeting on very important topic of issues in relation to the capital gains under section 45(4) and the taxability in hands of the partners. We have modified regarding the 45(3) because the way the presentation has been made by the Sharma ji. The 45(3) we will take up it later on, but at least in this meeting we will restrict, we will more focus on the 45(4) as the chairman, the meeting chairman permits, basically, and tax application. So that's what there is a change. And friends, we have a chairman for this session who is again a student professionals and always a learner. As a student learner, and as a strong thrust and the enthusiasm to learn the subject, and not only learning the subject but also the wholehearted parting of the knowledge among the members. And he also believes in wholehearted parting of the knowledge. And friends, we have with us the Vipul Bhai Joshi, and again Vipul Bhai, as the Yatin Bhai said, and basically there's no introduction, but I just briefly explain. He is a qualified chartered accountant as well as the law graduate, practicing as an advocate for more than 25 years, and he was with the association. He was with the association with the V.H. Patil advocate for 10 years. He was the president of CTC of the chamber for the last for the year 2006-7, and he is a managing committee member since last 10 years. He has taken very active members in the various committees of the ITIT Bar Associations, chambers, All India Federation of Tax Practitioners, and he will be a member of the Direct Tax Committee of the IMC. He has presented various papers and lectures at various seminars organized by the various professional organizations. With this brief introduction, I request all the members to welcome me with a loud applause, and request Yatin Bhai to present a memento as a token of love and affection towards it. With this, friends, like chairman of the session, we have the group leader, who is also a continuous learner of the subject of the income tax, and he is a person who is normally always among us, and always among youth when it comes to meeting or a group discussion in the study circles. Today also he is with us, but in a different capacity or different role to play. He is on the other side. Rather, again, there is no side as such in the study circle meeting, but there is a different role to play today. Yes, friends, I am talking about the Ashok Sharma, who is also a group leader. He is a group leader for the day and leading for the first time in the study circle meeting, sir. the study circle done. Long back he was never. So after gap of so many years, as Yatin Bhai said, he is leading for the study circle once again. Friends, we have given a very short biodata, as is a very simple. This one, Ashok Sharma is a practicing chartered accountant, practicing for more than 30 years. He is specialized in income tax appeal before CIT and ITAT. Managing Council member of the Chamber of Tax Consultant. He is a chairman of the Allied Law Committee of the Chamber and also a chairman of the, he was the chairman of the study circle and study group for the 6 years work as a Yatin Bhai referred. Addressed on the various seminars and written articles on the various professional magazines. With this brief introduction, I request all the members to welcome Ashok Sharma ji. I request now Yatin Bhai to present a memento as a mark. I'll hand over the proceeding to Chairman Joshi.
Good evening, friends. Happy to be back with you to not only share our view but also to gain in terms of taking your views also. And I always believe that we want this session or such type of sessions as interactive as possible. Basically, as I understand in income tax, ultimately they are always, almost all matters, there are always more than two views or one view. So what we may share, I may share or Sharmaji may share is his or my personal view, but there is a possibility of something more coming from you people. Even in courts you see nowadays judgments also, each tribunal, each court, even Supreme Court shares his own view. So there is no shying away from the fact that the field is wide open. Now as far as today's topic is concerned, 45.4, but one cannot discuss the implication of section 45.4 because section 45.3 also, because ultimately both are in a way related. Because partnership is a common, one section takes care of the retirement resolution, one section takes care of the admission. Especially when we interpret section 45.4 in terms of the general law, in terms of Indian Partnership Act, in terms of the basic concept of partnership law, then definitely the concept remains same whether it is admission or dissolution. There is certain distinction made by the Supreme Court. But I do agree with the chairman that yes, if we are really interested in going to the basic concept of Partnership Act, or rather if we are really interested in going deep into the genesis of section 45.4, we will have to go to the basic concept of partnership law as under Indian Partnership Act, and then come to Income Tax Act and try to reconcile the conflict. Why I say the word conflict? Because in income tax we have got plenty of sections where there are conflict between the general concept of law and the Income Tax Act. Like so for example, even within the scheme of capital gain, we have got conflict between general law, that is Transfer Property Act, that is Easement Act, or Contract Act, or Sale of Goods Act, vis-a-vis definition of transfer. So the conflict between the two is not uncommon. But what happens that in the anxiety to so-called plugging loopholes or to plug the leakage of revenue, in the name of that, when the legislature makes several changes in the Income Tax Act and they go contrary to the basic scheme, sometimes they miss the bus. You cannot go so much to the contrary basic law that then it defeats the purpose. And this 45.4 or 45.3 I would say is one such example where in the anxiety to plug leakage of revenue, according to my personal opinion, they have missed the bus of taxing the correct entity. That is of course my personal view. But anyway friends, coming to subject proper, as I always say that capital gain is one of the favorite topics in Income Tax Act because it is full of landmines. It is full of, the field is wide open. There are lots of interesting issues which can be discussed, which can be understood, which can be analyzed, especially in context of general law. A very interesting proposition which emerged from this scheme of capital gain tax, where really one feel satisfied of going deep into that. Especially coming to capital gain vis-a-vis Partnership Act, it has got its own unique flavor. because the concept of partnership itself is a very interesting issue, especially in the general law. Yes, income tax side, we have got partnership, we are treating partnership firm practically for all major purposes, independent taxable entities. So there is hardly any conflict between partner and partnership would accept certain sections of the income tax act. But in the general law, it's very dicey situation. The area is grey area. To what extent it's a separate independent entity? To what extent it is nothing but the compendious name given to the partners. With these points, that is why I suggested, of course, I suggested the learned group to them that if you can start with the basic concepts. First, let us understand what are the basic concept of partnership law, and then gradually move to income tax act, section 45(4). It may take some time, we may have to go in detail, but I think we all are here to gain further knowledge. We all are here to enrich ourselves with the knowledge which Sharma is going to share. And so I think we are eager to hear Sharma ji. But before I hand over the mic to Sharma ji, my observation is when Sharma ji is a group leader in RRC, he carries lots of books, but these are where Sharma ji carries a list, but he is with him. So I think lots of things already is in his mind, and I think it's going to be very interesting session. And please feel free to raise any issue if you want, because we want this to be interactive session. Don't hesitate to ask any question. Okay. Now you go to Sharma.
Mr. President, respected Chairman, respected seniors and friends. First of all, I thank the committee for giving me this opportunity for discussing this topic, because I really consider always it's an opportunity to learn whatever you are reading all the time, but it's an opportunity to learn the subject in detail. Friends, as President says, his first part was he is a scholar. I disagree. Second part was okay. Yes, I am a student and I like to be a student. As far as sharing of knowledge, I am not raising an issue with him, but then he says no, he doesn't share the knowledge. First of all, I was the chairman, so I can't be part of the group leader. For so many years I was the chairman, so I could not be. And whenever called upon, I am always ready. When chairman told me, I immediately said, yes, I am ready. Secondly, you must have seen whenever the study circle meetings are there, I am the first to share the knowledge, whatever I gather or whatever I learn. And in fact, I make a practice to go to that particular topic what we are discussing a day before, and try to share in the study circle meeting. Friends, it is said, had there not been last moment, many things would have remained undone. Though this meeting was fixed much earlier, but I had collected a lot of material also since last so many years. But last 2 or 3 days, I was not feeling well. In fact, I told the chairman whether I will be able to do it, but then I will try. But this meeting was postponed earlier also, so I thought it's not proper. And then whatever I could do in last 2 days, I have done it. If there are any shortcomings, kindly forgive me. Now coming to the topic, as chairman said, and first of all, friends, regarding the chairman, when the chairman asked me, chairman of the committee, who should be the chairman for the study circle, I immediately said Vipul Bhai, because he is already he's always ready to share his knowledge and very easily approachable. Whenever you want to discuss anything, he is always approachable. Coming to the topic, as the chairman said, first we will start with the definitions in partnership, provisions of partnership acts, so that we can understand the topic under the Income Tax Act in a better way. Just to start with, what is partner? Section 4 says partnership is the relationship between persons who have agreed to share the profits of a business carried on by all or any of them acting for all. This was just a starter. That's not much image, that is the, now coming to the section, we are given the handout of the sections of the Partnership Act which are relevant according to me as far as our topic is concerned. First of all, section 14 of the Partnership Act, the property of the firm. Subject to contract between the partners, the property of the firm includes all property and rights and interest in property originally bought into the stock of the firm or acquired by purchase or otherwise by or for the firm or for the purposes and in the course of business of the firm, and includes also the goodwill of the business. Now, on page 104, again, property of the firm has been discussed. The property of a partnership firm includes asset plus goodwill amongst other items, and wherever it is mentioned in the partnership deed by a clause that the retiring partner shall not get anything by way of a goodwill, it does not mean that the retiring partner will not get anything even out of the assets of the firm. Then this is a famous case of Adanaki Narayan Appa has been discussed. What it says is, one second, no, do one thing just. I am on page number 107, second line. During the subsistence of the partnership, however, no partner can deal with the portion of the property as his own, nor can he assume his interest in a specific item of the partnership property to anyone. His right is to obtain such profit, if any, as fall to his share from time to time, and upon the dissolution of the firm to a share in the assets of the firm, which remains after satisfying the liabilities set out in clause so and so in section 48. It has been stated by Lindley in partnership, what is meant by a share of a partner in his proportion of the partnership asset after they have been all realized and converted into money, and all the partnership debts and liabilities have been paid and discharge paid. What this judgment is saying and what is the law in this regard is, as long as the partnership is subsisting, you cannot say a particular partner has got a specific right in a particular asset. As was said, he has a right to share on dissolution, he has a right to share in the assets of the partnership firm. No partner can say, I have a specific share, I have 25% share in this particular asset. That is what this judgment now coming to the goodwill, that is on I think page number 120. Goodwill means every advantage, every positive advantage that has been acquired by a proprietor in carrying on his business, whether connected with the premises in which the business is conducted or with the name under which it is managed or with any other matter carrying on with the benefit of the business. Corporations may have a goodwill connected with their property, business or other rights. Then I will go to page number 127. what is the position on retirement? When therefore a partner retires from a partnership and the amount of his share in the net partnership assets after deduction of liabilities and prior charges is determined on taking accounts of on the footing of a notional sale of the partnership asset and given to him. What he receives is his share in the partnership and not any price for the sale of his interest in the partnership. So what they say is he is receiving, in the income tax judgment also said it is nothing but adjustment of pre-existing right. So here they are saying what he receives is his share in the partnership and not any price for the sale of his share in the partnership. His share in the partnership is worked out by taking accounts in the manner prescribed by so and so. Okay. Sorry. Now, question is about the registration. In Narayanappa, AR 1959, a full bench of the aforesaid court, that is Gujarat High Court, was required to consider whether transfer of shares of partnership which held immobile property among other assets required registration. After considering the various provisions, the full bench held that a document evidencing relinquishment by a partner of his interest in partnership asset does not require registration. Then again, as I said, again in some judgment they have quoted some judgment and they have said no partner can claim exclusive right so long as the partnership is in existence. That's what I mentioned earlier also. So this was regarding the rights of the partner and partnership firm. The chairman wants to...
Sharma, you just continue. First finish the basic concept,
okay,
and then we'll discuss because correct? Good.
And as you said, let it be interactive, so I would also like to gain from you also.
See, because why if I again repeat, is that once you go to the basic concept of partnership law, and then you may find that some judgments which have been rendered in the Income Tax Act, specifically under section 45(4), may not be reconcilable with the basic law. And that is why I am saying, and that will even to understand whether the particular judgment which is going to discuss later on is correct or not, whether it appeals to you or not. I think it is important to go to basic fact, basic general principles of law, especially in the income tax also. There are many judgments. I think that you will start after this. Let us first go to the basic concept of general law, then in the Income Tax Act before 1989 with the new scheme of partnership, taxation partnership form came into being, and then 45(4). Correct, Sharma? Correct. Right.
Yeah. Now, transfer of partner's interest. When a partner of a firm assigns his share in favor of a third person, in lieu of section 29(1) of the Act, the assignee gets no right or interest in the main partnership except, of course, to receive that part of the profits of the firm referable to the assignment and to the assets in the event of dissolution of the firm. Again, the same similar proposition. Then section 48, it talks of mode of settlement of accounts between partners. In settling the accounts of a firm after dissolution, The following rules shall, subject to the agreement by the partners, be observed. Losses, including deficiencies of capital, shall be paid first out of the profits, next out of the capital, and lastly, if necessary, by the partners individually in the proportion in which they were entitled to share profit. The assets of the firm, including any sums contributed by the partners to make the deficiencies of capital, shall be applied in the following manner. In paying the debts of the firm to third parties, in paying each partner rateable is what is due to him from the firm for advances as distinguished from capital. In paying to each partner rateably what is due to him on account of capital, and the residue, if any, shall be divided among the partners. Why I am discussing this? So when we come to that, when there is a distribution, when there is a dissolution, what is the position, etc. This is relevant here. According to me, this is what I wanted to share as per the partnership. If anything we want to go. Hey, इसमें on partnership law something also. Now coming to the issue, section 45(4). Friends, before amendment in 1987, there were judgments, so many judgments were there. Few of them I have listed: Devas Cine Corporation, Malabar Fisheries, Bakilal Vaidya, etc. The proposition was, on dissolution there is no transfer. And therefore, by the Finance Act 1987, there was an amendment which has brought section 45(4) on the statute book. Memorandum explaining the provisions is given in 165 ITR. Then here 47(2), there were up to 1987. See what happened in 1987 Finance Act, they brought 45(4), and there was a section 47(2) on the statute book which said that distribution of capital asset as asset on the body of individual so and so. What it says is, on dissolution, on distribution of capital asset, on dissolution, etc., there was no transfer, because they wanted to cover under 45(4) that 47(2) section is was omitted in that act only. So what are the provisions, ingredients of section 45(4)? There should be distribution of capital asset by the firm. Such distribution should be on dissolution of the firm or otherwise. Such distribution should result in transfer of a capital asset by firm in favor of the partner. On account of the transfer, there should be a profit or gain derived by the firm for the purpose of computing capital gain. And then what section says is, when you are computing capital gain, then fair market value of the capital asset on the dissolution, on the date of dissolution, is taken as the full value of the consideration, and the capital gains tax is attracted. As I said, section 45(4) versus section 247. No, this is the 45(4) versus section 247. In some of the judgment I have given, I will not, I have given the citation, etc. In some judgment, what the assess is argued, because there is no amendment in section 247, this section, the charge will fail and 45(4) will not be applicable. But there are also judgment like including Bombay High Court in the case of A.N. Naik, and so there are some other judgment also. What they say is, section 45(4) itself is a charging section. It's a code by itself, and even if there is no amendment into section 247, so 45(4) will be applicable. That is what then. Yeah. Next issue is, that is on item number 5, transfer of immovable property belonging to a firm in favor of the partner. Here, as I said, as I read out from the Partnership Act also, here the issue is whether a registered document is necessary for transfer where it covered under section 45(4). In this Gadia and Company, it was held that registered document is necessary when a firm owns certain properties, or a registered document will be necessary to transfer firm's interest in such property in favor of the partners, and mere book entries will not be sufficient. But this was under, it was 1982 case, but there is a judgment of this New Gujarat Tin Printing Works 128 RTD. There the contention of the assessee was firm that transfer of immovable property belonging to a firm in favor of his partner by mere book entries was not an. What assessee said, unless there is a registered document, there is no transfer. But this Ahmedabad Tribunal said, after this amendment as per section 45(4), this mere book entries will suffice and registration is not necessary. Here we want to have interaction. Here we should have the views of the chairman and others also. Jagdish Bhai is there. So what you feel, whether registration in such cases is required?
No. Transfer of property, whether it overrides the requirement of document having registered. I think there is one, if you are considering partnership firm as an independent taxable entity, independent legal entity, then any transaction between a partnership firm and its partner, at least for the purpose of Registration Act, whether document required to be registered. Now, in some cases, the courts have made a distinction that if you are allotting the property to the very partner who has got the property, then it may not be required. But if you are transferring the property to a partner who had not got the property before, then it is, the registration is required. That is not done away with. So in some instance, if your property is transferred from a partnership firm to a partner as an independent transaction, then all the other provisions of transfer property, REDWIT, Stamp-Duty and REDWIT Registration Act may be required. That is what my view is.
But the type of the partner bringing the property into the firm has to be registered.
No, their judgment that is not required. Question is when partnership firm is selling the property, or are they transferring the property? See, we are not talking about a dissolution or retirement. We are talking about a case where there is an existing partnership firm and there is no retirement, there is no dissolution, there is an independent transaction of sale or transfer from a partnership firm to a partner. So consideration which Sharmaji read about the earlier Supreme Court judgment of general law, the Narayappa case was under the Registration Act. And where Supreme Court thereafter in series of cases said that look, when you allot a property to a partner, whether upon dissolution or upon retirement, there is no transfer in the general law because what he is getting is share in the property, which otherwise also is entitled to. Because though firm is a legal entity in a way, but it is nothing but firm is holding property beyond all the partners. So when a partner gets a property for retirement or dissolution, there is no term, he is taking what was on its own, but in definite mode. Before that, all the partners are holding the property in a compendious mode through the form of partnership, which is not an independent legal entity, but is an informal legal entity. But when he gets a property, it is nothing but a crystallization of his share in the partnership firm. He is getting what was already his, but was jointly shared with others, but now the share is getting crystallized. In that context, Supreme Court said in Narayappa and other cases under general law, the Indian Registration Act, there is no transfer, and that is why all the consequences will follow.
Holding the immovable property in a stocking chain. In the partner because one of the partner because one of the property. Would the same implication follow?
Yeah, because now then we are not on the capital gain, capital asset, transfer, nothing. Because all 45(4) applies only when there is a transfer of a capital, or what is allotted is a capital asset. If what is allotted is is a Dodin capital asset, that is stock in trade, then all the 45(4) will not be applicable. But then again, as I said, even for 45(4), even what we are discussing today, we are talking only when a property is allotted on account of dissolution or retirement. To start again with the basic question, if it is a normal course of business, partnership is transferring any property to a partner, whether capital asset or stock in trade, then normal provisions would be applicable as if it is transferred from one entity to another entity.
Making property transferred in a particular partner's name, even though the document is not registered, but as far as the chargeability of capital gain is concerned in terms of the partnership firm, the possession of the property is already handed over to the person, one of the partners who is entitled to. But if it is registered or not, for all other practical purposes under the Transfer of Property Act and the Registration Act, it is required to be registered. The document is required to be registered. Till then, it is not going to be transferred. But chargeability of capital gain, I think the partnership, the end of the partnership, once the possession is given, and
then you are talking about the definition of transfer. 247 definition, because extended definition of transfer. Then you are talking about the extended definition of transfer into section 47, where if the contract is the nature of section 53 of the Transfer Property Act and the possession given to the transferee, then for income tax purpose of levy of capital gain, there will be deemed to be transferred for capital gain. But take a case where in Bombay High Court case where the transfer was only done by book entry, and the then partner in turn transferred the property. A department levied the capital gain tax on the partnership firm by holding that there was no valid transfer between the partnership firm and the partner. Bombay would approach the view of the department. There was no valid transfer to be done on registered document. And then that is why the Bombay High Court judgment, they said that the department validly charged capital gain in the end of partnership firm, not in the end of the partner.
So in case of two partners in a firm, one is working partner and one is financing partner, who have brought the investment into the property partner. And the partnership agreement specifically says that the working partner doesn't have any right to the property.
I don't think there can be any.
See, always there is subject to contract to the contrary.
Correct.
So if it is provided, then can you say?
No, that I understand it is for the qual goodwill.
Scotland does not have any right in assets. You can do that. There are two partners. Partnership from the different partners. Complete with contract. One is financing partner who has got the immovable property, and one is other partner who is working partner. And the agreement specifically says that the working partner doesn't have any right in the assets.
Any right in the property?
In the property of the and then the working partner retires and he becomes the sole partner. In that case, whether it comes to transfer.
See, 1 minute. Then if there is no partnership, then it is not a partnership property at all. That means the person who is owning the property, one of the other partners, he treats property as his own.
But he brings in the partnership.
Because the exclusion clause, because if you see compared to what section Sharmaji read, if you compare with the English law, where there was no such criteria of subject to contract of contrary. Now that, as a my reading, what is the goodwill? Because goodwill here you can exclude the retiring partner would not have a goodwill.
No, is it not?
No, correct. So when only two partners are there, and the partner will brought the property, who is only financing partner. I don't know whether he can bring the property as the property of the partnership firm, because it is if they are more than two, the different matter. Only two person and one partner, that means otherwise when you are excluding the working partner from any interest of property, then what remains is one personal interest.
Some of the
No.
Some of the partnership deeds, some of the old solicitors firms and even the chartered accountants firms, originally three partners were there who were contributed for the purchase of the property where the office is situated. Then subsequently what happens, some other new person is introduced as or admitted as a partner, and he has been specifically excluded from the property from where the professional activities are carried out. In such a case, when that fellow retires, the person who has been admitted, and then in professional firms, the people keep on coming in keep on going out. So what is going to be the fate of that particular property? It is not going to have any
No,
action.
the property remains the property of the firm. Are you allotting the property to the retiring partner?
No.
Correct. The property remains property of the firm. So what you are giving to the retiring party is some amount of money. So that 45 for Azura also will not be applicable. No, if it was 45 for, see 45 for that Samaji will talk to later on. 45 for, please suppose there is a distribution of property. Now there is a cash or bank. See, I am going now reverse. I think this topic would take later on, but since you have raised this topic, I think Samaji will start this topic, answer this. No,
First of all, no, before cash. See, as he said, this partnership subject to the contract to the contrary. And as he rightly said, I also seen there was a judgment last 2-3 months before, one matter was argued in the case of one chartered accountant. There, the same thing was, but they have accepted that this partnership, particular these assets will belong to the only 4 partners and will not belong to the other partners. So if that is the contract, that is the partnership agreement, is it not possible
assuming so, what difference will it make? Assuming so,
one second, Kevin Bhai,
assuming so,
Basically, these two issues which are raised, basic distinction is initially pointed out by Vipul Bhai, when there are only 2 partners, out of which one partner is the person who brings the property necessary finance for the firm. Other one is working partner only, and in the partnership it is provided that the working partner will have no share in the property.
Yeah.
Now here what happens, when there are only 2 partners, and the one partner is not going to have any share, then even if you try to say it has become a partnership property, but by virtue of express provision of the partnership will, it will continue to remain property of a particular partner only.
That's what I'm saying.
The distinction which you put by wanted.
No, so that's what I am also saying. You took the example of 2 partners.
in any case, it is not really bearing on 45(4) because ultimately in your any firm, in this whatever firm, what you are paying is the cash, check, but the word cash. You are not distributing very same property. So according to me, the basic concept of 45(4) is not even easier because you are paying check whether he has interest in the property or not. Whether he has interest in any particular property or partner firm or not, you are giving some X amount to retiring partner. Correct? So whether to take the last argument, that assuming 45, how you compute capital gain? 45(4) says in case of distribution of property on account of dissolution or retirement, you get it amount, then let's say it's a deemed transfer, deemed capital gain, everything gain. Then what section says how you compute capital gain? The market value of the property allotted to the retiring partner will be considered as a share value of consideration. So, and then review by cost, because what you can tax on the capital gain scheme is only gain, not the entire sale value. So you have to review by cost. Now once I am allotting, let's say I am using word allotting the cash or check, how would you compute capital gain? So I'm doing that it doesn't make any sense the difference in your case, whether the particular partner had interest in all the properties or in some only on certain properties or zero interest in any of the properties.
But as far as the section is concerned, it doesn't differentiate between
Exactly.
what are interest in all the property or not. It says that distribution on the dissolution or otherwise.
Correct.
So the ITO will definitely take a stand. कि भाई ये dissolve हो गया है.
Correct.
It amounts to the immovable property allotted to this partner.
No. The section doesn't say that. Section, that is why in the beginning, I remarked that if you go to the basic concept partnership act, then you realize the legislature by incorporating section 45(4)(3) had bundled up. There is the bug. Now, this is the point which I am trying to make it. Now, the 45 doesn't make any distinction whether the retiring partner, the partner to whom you are giving this model only, whether he has zero interest in the partnership asset or 10% or 100%.
That's what I'm saying.
So 45(4) is not concerned with how much interest the partnership from the partner had. Even how much percentage of share he had, forget out, even normal partner, whether he is living 20% or 20% or 100%, they are not concerned with that.
I agree, but the ITO will take a stand with the contribution among the partners, so it will tend to the firm. So the agreement specifically says that the working party doesn't have any rights.
45(4).
No, but then can you say when section provides that property belongs to that partner, who partners only, can you say it is distributed to others?
That nowhere in this exercise said that whether that clause is there.
No, I'll tell you, 45/4 is a distribution of capital asset upon retirement or dissolution. So whatever capital asset you are distributing, market value of that to a partner, market that will be considered value sale. So now whether the property which you are distributing, whether that property some person, some partner had how much interest, they are not concerned 45/4. See 45/4, he is a very artificial rule of thumb formula. Now there may result in various scenario where let's say there are two partners retiring. Both have different capital balances. Let's say one person has debit balance, one is credit balance. Now to both of them you are having same properties of same value. But then in 45 is not concerned. What was whether the person, why you are paying so much to the person with debit balance, because you are paying the same money to both the person, though they have different capital account, different balances. They are not concerned with that. They are simply concerned, okay, you are already property to Mr. X, what is the market value of that, where is the book value of that in the entire partnership firm, then the capital gain. Correct? So that is why I'm trying to say that you are right in the way that there is a conflict between the concept of partnership law or the basic concept and then the chargeability in the 45/4. It's a very artificial rule of thumb, manner of charging capital gain irrespective of all these considerations.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying that can you distribute to that work?
The court will say, you are right, court will say, look, we are not concerned, when that mentioned. No, the court will say that, you see, in income tax act, you come to think of it, there are so many artificial living provisions which are very contrary to the basic provisions of general law or even logic. Let's say 247, there are so many living provisions they have made it, but they are totally against logic or general law. Now court says we cannot, I mean, that's a legislature have to either they amend it. You want to see what argument of department would be in such a case? Because we are right that there are lots of various situations. For example, one situation will be a partner has got 0 interest or 10% or no interest. Correct? But how we are going to, we don't have any mechanism to take care of all the different types of situations. So we provide one artificial rule of thumb formula. But like for example 44AD, because we have got various businesses. Now we are trying to, we have got 8%. At your business, sorry. No, but people buy. One by one, let him fight.
Only 3 partners have the interest in the immovable property. And out of this 5 partners, only 2 partners were allocated the property and 1 partner who was entitled into the original immovable property is not getting anything, and the other 2 partners were not at all having any right to the immovable property, and it is getting dissolved. What is going to be the chargeability of other and how the 44?
Strictly go by 45/4. Strictly go by 45/4.
No, but when a particular partner don't have the interest in that property, can you, while making retirement, etc., can you say that property is given to him? See, no, can you say?
45/4 is not concerned.
No, what I'm saying is, under the
let me understand. 45, let's understand very clearly that 45/4 is co-partnership firm. Tax liability on a partnership firm, nothing to be, only it is not in partner. So 45/4 is not concerned with the status of partner or partner. It is concerned with the taxability in the partnership firm. When partnership firm is allotting something, the assuming you are allotting at the market value, market to less cost is income of the partnership firm. So it is not concerning the person who is allotting how much, even you are talking about the sharing partnership firm. I am saying even if person with debit balance of capital, you are saying that, so they are not concerned with status of partner. How much interest you have got in the partnership property, how much interest you got, profit sharing ratio, whether you have debit balance, credit balance, why we are allotting at such a high value, low value, they are not concerned. Let's say, I will give an example, that a partnership, let's say there are 4 partnership firms, identical partnership firm, and they are in the business of now they each partnership firm had bought some paintings by renowned artists. Now from all the 4 partnership firms, let's say one partner retiring from it. Now in 1st partnership firm, the partnership firm chooses to pay him cash. Let's say his credit balance of capital account of all the 4 partners in the 4 different firms is 1 lakh. So partnership firm has to pay them 1 lakh. Now firm number 1 will pay in cash. Okay, this is the cash. We have got firm first partnership firm will have cash ready. Okay, check of 1 lakh, you pay to 1 lakh, matter is over. Now the second partner firm, it does not have cash flow, it has got paintings. All the firms had bought the paintings of 1 lakh at cost value. Now in the second partner firm, the painting cost is 1 lakh, market value of 1 lakh, it gives painting to the partner. Third partner firm, painting which is giving, the book value is 1 lakh, it is market value is less, only 5 rupees, zero. Still it is giving painting. In fourth partner firm, the market value of painting is let's say 5 crore. In all the cases, all the 4 cases, the balance of the retiring partner was 1 lakh. In all the 4 cases, the book value of the asset transfer is 1 lakh. In the first case, cash, other is 1 lakh. But see the 4 different scenarios. But that is why it is artificial, it is totally artificial. You are not concerned why you are paying, to whom you are paying, just cost, the market value you are paying less cost. The incidence of capital gain will be different in all the 4 firms. In fact, I go one step further. Let's say only one partnership firm, 2 partners are retiring. In both of them, you are giving painting but different values. Market value.
That's why you are
Correct. And one partner may be debit balance, one partner may be credit balance. We are not concerned. That is, I am saying, that is why I said, which the boss means actually the real beneficiary. If you see the real commercial, if you see commercially, in commercial transaction, in the partner number 3 and 4, the partners have got 1 lakh balance to receive from the partner firm. In one case, he is getting painting worth rupees 5 market value, but book value is 1 lakh. In other case, he is receiving painting book value is 1 lakh, but market value is 5 crore. But who has benefited? So commercially, in fact, it should a partner, retired partner who is getting benefited, but partner firm is not benefiting. But you are taxing partnership firm. So I am saying, I get your point, but 45 that is why is saying rule of thumb.
No, you are right. To reconcile this issue, say there are 5 partners. 3 partners have share in the property. 2 partners will just outgo this working partner. So if there is a dissolution, and I understand that working partners will not be entitled to the property. Property will be distributed to the 3 partners only because they had only interest in that property. But as he says, still 45(4) will apply in the hands of the firm.
It called the firm.
Yeah.
Called the firm. Now whether you allotted to 1 partner or 5 partners, doesn't matter for them, but capital gain will come to only 1. See, whether one I am giving, there are 4 partners retiring, if I give property all the 4 partners, only 2 or only 1, my competition will be market your property allotted. It is not partners I am allotting. So it doesn't matter the partner firm is concerned whether I am giving to 1, 2, 3, 4 or whether they were it is all market value less my WDV or my cost book value.
So what will be the effect of if the firm is occupying the tenanted property? Which is not in this.
Which is?
Not in the books of the firm.
Correct.
It is in the name of the partner. So I say two partners, out of 2 partners. In the case of dissolution, what will be posted? Whether that tenancy property will be
No, whether we under Bombay Rent Act, we have got section 15 of Bombay Rent Act. I think Praveen Bhai will elaborate it under earlier Bombay 15 of Bombay Rent Act, where a business, because tenancy at that time was not transferable, but you are transferring business and along with it you are transferring partnership, then your tenancy then it was transferable. Now in your case, 2 partners were tenant and they have brought that, as I understand, they have brought the tenancy right in the partnership,
but nothing is
nothing in the books, so nothing is there. And then in the retirement and then the resolution you want to allot to whom? Some other partner, the tenancy rights. It remains back. So I don't think there should be any tax implication. There was no cost. As a partner, there was no cost, there was no property of the firm. There was no property of the firm. 2 partners were brought, but it remains with them. It remains with them. So you can say this is a partnership only use that property for the intervening period. That's okay. For usage. So intervening period, the firm was only using the property of the 2 partners. Apparently, can you elaborate this?
As far as the partnership is concerned, it is the original partners who were the partners at the time when the first rent receipt was issued. They are to be considered as the tenants. Now afterwards, if there is a change in the partnership form and if you can prove that the landlord is aware of these changes, then it can be argued that the landlord has accepted the other partners as the tenant. But in the actual form, things like the express evidence, it is only the original partners who were the partners at that time when the first rent receipt was issued will be considered as the tenants. Now as far as the assignment of tenancy as a incidental to running business was concerned, earlier under the earlier act it was permitted because of the specific notification issued by the government of Maharashtra. Now as far as the new act is concerned, there is no such notification applicable. So therefore it is not free from doubt whether...
I think section 15 earlier, Bombay Rent Act, section 15 of Rent Act. Sorry? No, there are only tax implication in your case. The property tenancy rights remain the two partners. Only thing is intervening when they allowed the firm to use that tenancy and they received certain rent.
They were directly paying to the
Not fine, they were reimbursing.
But can the ITO take a stand?
No.
So their firms have got a tenancy right.
Firm never became owner of the tenancy right. You cannot distribute what you did not own. You cannot distribute something which you are not owner. Sorry, you were saying something.
Right. In the retirement, it is specific to mention the retiring partner releasing right in the immovable property.
That is coming to that. He will come to that. He has got the chapter. Yes. When he comes to that 45 legal precedent. Yes. I will come to that.
Now the section starts with the word transfer of property. The transfer of property by a firm to partner on account of this.
Correct.
There must be a transfer of property as per section 247.
Correct.
So if there is no registration, but the person is given, if you are quite satisfied,
See, if we are talking about dissolution or otherwise, or retirement, under general law, Supreme Court, not even under income tax side, Supreme Court in so many cases has held that there is no transfer involved. Even in contrary to section 2, subsection 47. Supreme Court clearly held there is no transfer involved because what the partner gets is nothing but is sharing the property. There is no transfer one. Now, to overcome that they introduce section 45(4) without amending section 2, subsection 47. So they have not amended section 2, subsection 47 to deem this type of thing also as transfer. Supreme Court clearly said there is no transfer. Supreme Court clearly said there is no transfer. Supreme Court also is law of the land, Supreme Court decision. Now they have not amended to 47, but they directly brought 45(4). The issue, the Samaj will now discuss. Samaj, you discuss.
No, as I said, I discussed in the beginning, there are some judgment which said, and assessee argued, unless there is an amendment in 247, this charge will fail. But there are subsequent judgment even in Naik also. They said 45(4) itself a charging section and it's a code by itself. So even if there is no amendment in 247, the section 45(4) will trigger.
Now, of course, this will trigger lots of controversy, as I said in the beginning, that if you disregard the definition 247, then what do you regard? Then you go to general law. Then that 247, 5 and 6 artificial will not come to play. See, department cannot have both the things. Either they said, look, 45(4) is a charging section by itself, code by itself. It is not governed by definition section 2, subsection 47. Then that means department said, I will go by general law of transfer. Now, 2 subsection 47 has got very artificial definitions also. Then department cannot take advantage of the artificial definition to 47. Then department should strictly go by general law of transfer. So that it cuts both the ways. But again, the A.R. Naik has mentioned that, but according to me, it's not free from doubt because 247 is meant for charging capital gain. Section 247 is for capital gain purpose, not for any other purpose. Now, if you don't apply for that 45, then what happens? Only thing that they get by deeming, we say that okay, because 46(2) also is a similar provision for companies that.
Bombay High Court, whether Supreme Court any special leave petition is filed or not?
A.R. Naik, I am not aware.
Because now another Karnataka High Court is a favorable.
And that will come to that. Yeah, full bench. Yes.
Prior to 45(4), there was 47(2), which said that
no transfer on dissolution.
Now, earlier capital gain was not chargeable because there was no transfer or because there was specific exemption.
No, that's what I said. See, there is a view that 47(2) was by of a abundant caution.
This is based on some precedent?
No, precedent, I have heard that, but I could not lay my hand on that. I will just try to do that. But they said when Supreme Court says on distribution, on dissolution, there is no transfer. And then question is, as you rightly said, I also said in the beginning, then why this 47-2? And after deletion of 47-2, what is the position? So, but as I said, whether it is this, I have read somewhere long back, but again we will try to find out that that 47-2 was just by abundant caution, but for 47-2 also there was no transfer.
Because of 47-2, there was specific exemption, it will not amount to a transfer.
No, in 47-2 itself that exemption was there.
Dissolution of asset at the time of dissolution will not amount
No, that's what the issue we are discussing. No, that's what that issue. But then Supreme Court also, Malabar Industrial, then Bankilal were there.
They must have read the 47-2, that time that was
I know.
section.
When we come to the taxability partner, again we will see.
So like under section 10 also, similarly, just because a particular receipt is included in section 10 does not mean that for the inclusion it was taxable. There are many issues on this point, but sometimes you make some provision just by abundant caution. Doesn't mean that just because if there is no provision it will be. So I think that Sharmaji rightly pointed out there are so many issues in Supreme Court earlier on very same partnership where they are not considered 47, but still they heard that it is there is no transfer.
Because Sunil Siddharth, Supreme Court said that when a partner introduces the asset, there is a transfer. Is only consideration is not asset because consideration lies in the womb of the future. In dissolution, it is the reverse which is happening.
No, Supreme Court said what Nayarappa, there is no transfer because
I am referring to Sunil Siddharth, where Supreme Court said that when a partner introduces an asset,
that is what they mean between retirement and admission. The Supreme Court upheld the ratio of Nayarappa that on dissolution there is no transfer, on admission there is a transfer, but because you cannot quantify the consideration. In Sunil,
also on retirement they have discussed all these issues.
But they accepted retirement, that yes, retirement there is no transfer.
So we were on the book entries. So according to you, book entries, registered document is necessary.
Probably you can throw some light on that.
So question here is, when partnership asset is given to the partner, whether registered document is necessary. And particularly after introduction of this 45-4, even one of the tribunal judgment I cited, they said, the assessee argued, there is no registered document, it's and nearby book entries, transfer will not be attracted. But then the Ahmedabad tribunal negated that, and they said, as per the amended law now, this it is liable to tax nearby book entries also. So how you reconcile that general law and now as per this amendment in
proper title to the property, then it is always advisable that you pay proper stamp duty and get the document registered. Because what will happen if that partner wants to get the property transferred to his name in the government record, then also they will not take.
No, there are two things, one under general law and secondly as for taxability under Income Tax Act. So as far as income tax law is concerned, can you say even if there is no registered document?
As far as taxation is concerned, you are better.
No, I know, but then that's what we feel right. Can you say as far as taxability is concerned, now because that Ahmedabad tribunal also says that it will be attractive even if there is no registered document.
See, I just referred to 214 ITR 716. So what I was saying, the CIT versus J. Mehta. But I mentioned about one fact that the capital gain ultimately was found chargeable in the hands of the firm, not in the hands of the partner, because there was no registered document, there was no valid transfer of property yet.
How about the applicability of section 50C?
That is again, Sharmaji, we have discussed. On what? 50C.
On 45-4 versus 50C. But see, there will be, in both the cases, these fair market values to be taken. Section 45-4 also talks of fair market value. 50C also talks of that issue of value.
Generally, fair market value is higher than stamp duty value.
50C stamp duty value. Fair market value.
So generally, by and large, stamp duty value is lesser than fair market value.
Stamp value is a fair value. So
anyway,
can I restrict the scope to 50C then? That's the question. In 45(4), can I ask an AO restrict to 50C, though the fair market value is much more?
No. Well, the 50 is a decision to that effect. But stamp duty value is there, even they say the true fair market value, not only fair market value, I think they say true fair market value, stamp duty value.
Stamp Valuation Authority, the value.
TC says, but stamp value is what? Under Stamp Act, it is true fair market value.
Supposing the fair market value.
What may be the stamp duty value? Now, anyway, fair market value is separately defined in the Income Tax Act. So we have to go back that because there is specific provision which is override 50C. 45 is specific provision in fair market value also defined under income tax subsection in section 2 definition. No. You have to go by 45(4), which is talks about fair market value, which is defined under section 2. So you go back to that. This issue will be more relevant under 45(3) when it is at book value. When we introduce, but that as we are not discussing today, that we'll discuss when we discuss 45(3). Because there, suppose you introduce at book value, and 50C value is different. So there are judgments to that effect that we'll discuss whenever we take up that. While on this, we should note the provisions of the Stamp Act as far as this dissolution and partnership. What is the provision, just to understand? Where on a dissolution, the partnership or on retirement of a partner, any property is taken as is shared by a partner other than a partner who brought that property, as the case may be. What they say is A brings it and B takes away, then there will be liability to stamp duty.
What if the same person takes it?
Then no.
Stamp duty.
Then it will not be, no? If same person, that's what it says, no? If the person who brought and if the other person takes away, then there is liability to stamp duty. Now issue will be, as he's saying, same person takes away. Then third situation will be what happens to a firm's property. When firm purchases a property and some partner takes away, then the view is that stamp duty will be attracted. Now, issue number under 6, whether word or otherwise. See, we will just go to the section again. What section says is, the profits or gain arises from the transfer of a capital asset by way of distribution of capital asset and the dissolution of a firm, or so and so, the AOP that will remove. So and so, cooperative or otherwise. So question here is whether this word or otherwise is to be read with the word dissolution or it is to be read with the transfer of a capital asset. Again, friends, in income tax, as Vipulbhai says, everywhere you will find two views are there are judgment on both the sides. I have given some judgments here. Dissolution word otherwise, see in Burlington Export 45 ITD Mumbai Tribunal this issue had arisen, and this Mumbai Tribunal said this or otherwise word is to be read with the dissolution and retirement will be covered under that. Then there is a judgment of A.M. Naik. It was held that otherwise has to be read with the word transfer of capital asset on distribution by capital asset. If so read, it becomes clear that even where a firm is in existence and there is a transfer, what it says is, even if the firm is in subsistence and there is a transfer of a capital asset to a retiring partner, still this provisions will be attracted. So then the conclusion is the same, or on retiring will be covered. But then in this Burlington Export said the dissolution or otherwise is to be read with the dissolution, whereas they said here they are saying or otherwise has to be read with the words transfer of a capital asset. But as I said, on page number, on item number 12, there is a judgment of Goel Research which held the allotment of a firms to a retiring partner.
term used in section 45(4) is distribution of capital assets on the dissolution of a firm or otherwise cannot be extrapolated to bring retirement of one partner and the ambit of the section into the ambit of the section. Hence, 45(4) has no application in the case of retirement of one partner. That apart, there was an additional argument. So first these are the observation. Then there was in this case there was a family arrangement also, and they said because also there was a family arrangement. Yes. I'm coming to that. One partner dies.
Both the partners died in accidentally. Then what will be the position? There is a real fact.
Are you coming to that?
Yeah, I will come.
Both the partners died. Then what will be the position?
This is only one part expired. Now other part also expired.
See, then in this atom number 14, Bharat Dining, what it says is, word otherwise takes within its sweep not only the cases of dissolution of firm, but also cases of transfer of assets by succeeding partners to a retiring partner. I think same ratio what A and Naik said. Now your issue. Here the issue, next issue is item number 7. Whether transfer under section 45(4) does not take place during the previous year, even if there is a dissolution of firm on death of a partner. Here there were two partners. One partner died, and the issue arose. The issue was mainly whether in that year there will be any charge. Here the Madras High Court said, what section says is not only dissolution, distribution of capital asset on dissolution. If there is no distribution of capital asset on dissolution, then in that there will not be any charge. That is what the Madras High Court said in this case. Now coming to both the partners dies, then their legal representative steps into the shoes. Now here as I said, this Vijay, sorry? There is no charge.
Because legal head, you cannot, 45(4) applies to also AOP. I think that point, 45(4) also takes over AOP also. Now you cannot say the legal heads continue to be AOP. AOP means two persons coming together to earn profit. Unless in BOI, Body of Individual, we had a concept only, now of course that concept is not there. But AOP is one of the basic criteria which courts say is that there should be beginning of two persons, not as a code, but to do some activity to earn income. Now, these both the partners expired, both the legal heirs will be just selling the property, whatever the firm. And maybe when they done, there will be an issue of capital in the individual hand. If they have brought because what they received as a property as a buy of inheritance, and they sell it like it will be like any other mode of inheritance from your father, whatever. But they so 45(4) will not be applicable.
Once partners die, firm will come to an end.
Correct.
There is automatic resolution.
Correct. So that is 45(4) is not question.
There will be capital gain tax liability.
No, that's what Dinesh bhai you are discussing. What that there should be distribution, and as I write, winding up provisions are there under the Partnership Act. After dissolution, there is a process of winding up.
No distribution.
Only most it can be postponed for 1 or 2 years. Sarmaji, say distribution of asset postponed for 1 or 2 years.
That is okay.
It will be
in the year of distribution. It will be liable.
No, no, issue is that in which year 45(4) tax, I think that what Sharmaji is the issue is that in which year 45(4) will be attracted, in the year of dissolution or year of distribution. Now if we take the view, I think that no, it is not in the year of dissolution per se, but it should be followed by distribution. The tax had been in the year of distribution. So that is the year in which transfer need to have taken place.
Yeah.
Case law is also there.
Not the judgment what Sharmaji referred to that extent, But again, there is an interesting issue, but I don't think if your time permit that in case of fishing two partners, which will get two part of one partner at pass, then what is the situation? But then that the judgment, already judgment is taken, dissolution per se is not the triggering event for charging 45. It should be actual distribution. Suppose there is a result, but there is no distribution at all. Ultimately, by course of winding up, they found that nothing is surplus. Then what happens? Partnership firm, let's say, wound up, dissolved. In course of winding up, they sold their huge property for the crores of people. At the same time, they had liability of crores of rupees. Ultimately, there was no surplus. Now, what will you tax? Would you tax the capital derived from a particular asset, or you take overall you cannot asset net liability? Because what is distributed under a partnership, like what is to be allocated to the partner in what surplus remains after meeting all the liabilities. That surplus is to be
dissolve the firm without distribution of assets.
That's what the judgment says, that dissolution is one and distribution different. Because once dissolved, then the planning the process starts. What section says is distribution of capital.
Distribution can be kept.
Yes, that's what happened in this court. And then the partnership has also provided for that. It may be deemed to be continued. 48, 49 section on the partnership act.
You need to say if there is British tax liability and legal errors or are to know that British tax will be liable to be paid. So we should not pay the distribution and we should enjoy the.
See, that depends upon each level.
That may not be the intention of the government.
But that's what the judgment said. The judgment can know the triggering point is not the dissolution per se, but distribution. If you are not distribution, then what is capital gain?
Things can carry on.
No, 1 minute. When dissolution takes place, you are not entitled to do any further. What you are entitled is to start the winding up process of realizing the properties.
One section says fair market value on the date of
Distribution.
dissolution. Give the indication.
Dissolution. Fair market value on the date of
Dissolution and distribution are in separate years.
Yeah.
Distribution happens 3 years later.
Yeah.
I still go back to the earlier years.
Yeah, like 45(2), there is a transfer, but the ultimate charge in the year of
That is payable.
year of change. So like what is you want to say? In the year of
That would
no, what I just take few lines from this. Until such time, such capital gain is transferred by of distribution of the asset on the dissolution of the firm, no occasion arises for bringing to tax any capital gain on a transfer which has not taken place. The section itself gives no room for a doubt as the year in which the capital gain is to be brought to tax, the provision the previous year in which the said transfer takes place, and the transfer takes place as per in the year of distribution.
clear. It's very clear. In the year in which transfer takes place.
Yeah, transfer takes place.
The act itself deems it.
That's what I'm saying. So you are saying date of distribution. Date of distribution. Therefore, I could know. His question was, see what happens in the case of when we are filing the returns for estates. Many times, for years together, we continue to file the estate return of the estate. But that may not be advisable, and I don't know how the court have taken the view. See, suppose you have distributed the asset, and when the legal heirs are liable to tax, then but then there are, I have seen some cases where for years together they are filing. So as he said, for years together, suppose you don't distribute, then what happens? That will.
What happens? Suppose there is a dissolution of the firm, but there is no distribution.
Yeah.
There is no distribution of assets.
That's what we are saying, but as he rightly says, and as I also...
Those assets are earning income, so how will be representing income tax?
As he rightly says, section triggers in the transfer takes place in the year of distribution. When section, and that is what...
How the asset will be, how that assets from that firm will be represented before the income tax?
No, that again is an issue. That again is a... No, that again, no, we can dispose of that issue. That again is an issue. What will be the status of that taxability? What is that status of taxability? See, this issue had arisen, I think 57 ITD, etc., Vora Associates Pune Tribunal, but there they said it is to be taxed as an AOP. But why they took that view? In that period, you had to file form number 12 for registration, and because the form 12 was not filed, they said you have to assess as an AOP. But now there is a section 189. I will just read it. 189. Section 189. Income tax. 189. Yeah. See, what it says is, where any business or profession carried on by a firm has been discontinued or where a firm is dissolved, the assessing officer shall make an assessment of the total income of the firm as if such discontinuance or dissolution no such discontinuance or dissolution have taken place, and all the provisions of this act, including the provisions relating to the levy of penalty, etc., will apply. So they said firm will be deemed to be taxed, and for this there is a judgment also which has also taken. Here the issue was raised whether this applies for all purposes, even for 45(4) also, but then there is a judgment also only for this. I don't know whether I have listed in my list. It is CIT versus Southern Tubes. I will just read few lines. Whether it results of an arrangement so and so. Yeah, whether dissolved firm can be assessed for capital gains tax under section 45(4) by virtue of provisions contained in section 189(1), held yes. This is what Kerala High Court has taken the view in 171 taxman 254. When we are on the two partners, the issue is, suppose one partner dies and the continuing partners start the business with the legal heir and the property remains with the firm only, then what will be the position?
But Sharmaji, that continuing partner carries on business even without taking legal heir of business.
No, carries on, then see, then he has taken over the asset liabilities, no? Then he has taken over, then there is the distribution. Yeah. But question is, when he carries on the partnership along with the legal heir, then what will be the position? No, therefore legal heir is admitted and they carry on in the status of firm. Sorry?
From the date of admission of the legal heir will be from that day to day.
Same day is admitted. Same day is admitted. Here, Sharmaji, whether it will not be that on the date, at the time of death of one of the partner in place of two, then that time there automatic there is a distribution and then there is a dissolution.
See, as I said,
so as when the partner is expired, it is a dissolution. So once it is dissolved, and when a new partner is admitted to that.
No, but as we discussed, it doesn't trigger only on dissolution, it triggers on distribution. You are right. Suppose there is also an issue which was raised by some. There are two partners, and in the partnership deed it is provided that on death of a particular partner, his legal heir will be admitted to the partnership. But the Supreme Court, I think, has held for the moment there is a dissolution. But see, dissolution is okay, but the issue is whether there is a distribution of capital asset, which, as I said, section clearly says transfer is is when distribution of capital asset.
No, Sharma, in this case, you may make distinction between if there are only two partners or more than two partners. If there are only two partners, one partner expires, then automatically the firm is dissolved by operation of law.
Yeah.
Because generally, if you see the most of the partnership, if we write that dissolve clause, the death, insolvency or insanity or whatever of one of the partner will not dissolve the partnership and the continuing partner will fit divide. So that applies only when there are more than two partners and one partner expires.
Yeah.
If there are two partners, then even if you have got that clause, it is no meaning because ultimately by operation it got dissolved. Now after dissolved, then it will go to the partners, whatever allotted. If entire thing is allotted, the surviving partner, then the entire asset, he may form the new partner from very on the same day.
No, if he takes the asset, then only, no? But suppose he has to have the agreement with the legal heirs, no?
Then you will be forming a new partnership firm.
Yeah.
That time it will be introduction.
That will be new partnership.
No,
First it is distribution and then introduction.
no, so distribution to whom? No, distribution to whom? Distribution to whom?
Praveen bhai, what is the general law?
The surviving.
Even for a moment admittedly there will be dissolution by operation of law.
No, that's why the registrar of firms also takes this view and asks you to file a form and not E form. I think the people understand. When two persons are partners at one time and you admit new persons, they say no, it is a new form. You will get new number and that's why you file the form as if you are filing new.
And new VAN number also.
New number.
The VAN number also.
New number also is given. So as per registrar of firm also, the separate form may have same name, same address.
No, I appreciate because of operation of law there is a dissolution.
Yes, dissolution.
Question is there automatic distribution? Whether the whole thing goes to the surviving partner? That issue we have to address.
Somebody can we say because of death of partner, so old firm is succeeded by new firm. So there is a transfer of asset from one firm to another.
No, that is no.
That is a 45.
No. See, the limited.
So what you say before on this? See, my question is, okay, there is by operation of law there is a dissolution, but by whether there is an automatic distribution of asset to the surviving partner.
Let's say there are two partnership firms, both are into two partners. In both one partner expired. Let's say that person who expired was partner into different partnership firm. Only two partners in you. Now in one partnership firm, the other partner decide to run the business as sole proprietor concerned. Correct? In other, he decide to take either legal or business part or anybody else and continue or continue new firm in the same name, in the same business, running business. Whether there will be different tax liability in different cases. Because both the cases there is automatic dissolution.
When you say he is carrying on the business as a proprietor, that means he has taken over those assets and liabilities.
Correct.
And then definitely there is you can say it is a distribution.
Correct.
But my question is,
in the second case, he does the same thing but by admitting a new partner.
Yeah.
In one case he is going solo, other case he is just asking somebody else to join him.
but here he is not saying all these assets belong to me.
Suppose in the books of account of the reconstituted firm, what is the capital contribution to whatever asset of the firm? So that let's say there is a new firm, there will be new partnership firm that we agree that it will be new partnership firm. Now all the assets from the partnership firm, all liability, it will be credited in use under the two partners capital account. It will be credited in use partners capital account.
That is an issue.
That means he has got this as a complete contribution in the partnership firm. So at the moment 45 he also may get taken, maybe there is also cost. But in one case he continues business on his own, other case he continues business with the other partner. There cannot be two different tax liability in the end of the old partner. We are the old partner which got dissolved. Okay.
ELA firm and Shakti Trading Company. ELA firm stock to be value and market value. But Shakti Trading, they say because firm is continuing business, so it should be value at market value. So whether from that
Then 45 for that, ALO will concern 45 for. So 45 for is very clear, there is a distribution. Now what is distribution? It is not defined, but then what distribution, what one person takes, what the retiring partner, what the partner takes. Then he may continue that whatever share he got from the dissolved firm, he may either sell that asset, he may continue business as a proprietor or he may continue business among the other partner. As far as the dissolved party firm is concerned, how there will be different tax liability? It has gone to that partner. Now what partner in turn chooses to do thereafter, that side will not be different. Now, what the form, withdrawal form.
Distribution means actual distribution or dealing distribution?
So, you are distributing the partner, the surviving partner. Now that surviving partner, what he does with that asset is the second stage. Sorry.
Yeah, can I avoid this problem by inserting in my partnership deed itself that it will not be dissolved, but the legal.
No, I said that, as I said, courts have said for a moment there is a dissolution. No, even if you are insulted.
Then automatically because the basic requirement of partnership is there is only two partners. If there are only two partners and one partner dies, then irrespective of anything written in the partnership deed, basic requirement of agreement
So partner correct.
In legal will be deemed to have been admitted 1 million involved there.
Deep, but partnership by contract. No. See, in fact, of course, we don't have time or we not, but in fact, they are very intellectual. If you compare the LLP Act, that without the wish of anybody, you can say my legal become partner in nature of contract. I may agree to be partner personally, but not in legal here. They are very intellectual in the English law, but of course, because whether without the consent of all the partners, because legal is legal, I don't know. Let's say there's a partner between myself and Sharmaji. Now you may put that, whether you I don't know who is legal at that time, it may be 2, 3, whatever the legal is. So partner by contract, I don't have accepted. I cannot bind myself to be a partner compulsory with somebody whatever legal is at that time.
Normal partnership is concerned, many times just to permit a smooth functioning of the partnership, the partners may mention that in the event of death of the partners, the partner hereby nominates so and so of the legal heirs to follow, to be admitted as a partner in that case. But again, that also is not binding on that legal heir.
Plus it is a fresh partnership. What I am trying to say, it is possible, but it will not be continuous in the same partnership. It will be a fresh contract between myself and Sharmaji legal heir, maybe by virtue of whatever.
But there will be no signature of the legal heir.
That's what I am saying. So Samyak is a fresh partnership. You may on the same day, maybe on the same day, but it's a fresh partnership. I don't know about PAN number, I don't know about detail about PAN number, series, which I don't know what is a PAN number, but there's a difference. 45 for demeaning fiction, not to buy. It will new partnership form continue. Suppose there is a clause. The legal is saying I don't want. Then what is happening? So the old partnership form. That is what I am saying. See, tax ID is the dissolved form. Now what happens after the dissolution? Whether that whatever asset with that asset, whether a continuing partner forms another partnership form which is legal or also outsider or proprietary, it's second which should not affect the taxability. Doesn't make it. There is no dispute. No, but it will not make any difference as far as the 45(4) is concerned. I think I say the next you can postpone it. I think next after 10 minutes करना है ना. People are might not because आपने कुछ रह गया तो otherwise not ठीक है. See, I am telling you there are lots of issues. That is why I want interaction and for many of the issues you may not get any final answer because the 45 that is the starting point. When I said the starting point is wrong because partner firm gets nothing, gain nothing. You are giving property to a partner at the most. He should be taxed at the most because he has gained something. He has a capital of 1 lakh. He is getting now 5 crore worth property. Whatever he has gained something. That is why commercially. But anyway, we are not taxing in the end of the partner. partnership form, I'm sorry.
Since they have been, then definitely it will continue to the next meeting. So at least now last topic with the conversion we cover up and then we end for the day.
Okay, sure.
And we continue with the next meeting. We have next meeting.
Item number 17, see many times what is happening, if there is a revaluation, in this case also it has happened the same thing, there was a revaluation, then when partners accounts were credited, partners taking the enhanced value of the asset on retirement amounted to transfer of capital asset as envisaged. See here merely because there was a revaluation and amount was credited to the partner's account was paid, even they applied 45(4), of course that is not correct. As far as the taxability in the hands of the partner, I have given the detailed note that of course we can consider in the next meeting. Then item number 8, conversion. Again this is a, see what happens when there is a conversion under part 9 of the Companies Act. See, as you know, this takes in Bombay High Court, and I also said on conversion from partnership firm, when there is a registration under part 9, then there is no transfer. It's a wasting of the property. In fact, in the Stamp Act, there is a Guining Press some case, 60 company cases, that was under the Stamp Act. They said on conversion under part 9, there is no liability to Stamp Act. The same has been followed in, has been referred in the Bombay High Court judgment of Taxpin. There again they said there is no liability when the this partnership it is converted under part 9. One last issue, question is when depreciable asset is given to the partner, whether 45(4) applies, and say even after considering the fair market value of the property, my block of asset continues, then still there can be any liability or not. According to me, as long as the block of asset continues, then still there will not be any liability to tax. Any view on this? Yeah. See, then in recent, of course, it's a very big judgment, and some facts we have to go into that of Dynamics. It is in 359 ITR. I given the citation of DTR. It's a full bench judgment. We'll go into the facts of that case, and then we have to come to the taxability in the hands of the partner, and then as was said, 45(3) some aspect also we will consider in the next meeting. Thank you so much, friends.
Thanks. No.
Only thing is that more important point which Sharma ji has laid down, this to mention that what we are going to discuss next time, it is very interesting issue that under 45(4) you tax a partnership firm on retirement resolution. 45(3) tax about the admission. But in 45(4) when there is a dissolution or retirement, can you tax partner also? Because I think some of the queries raised by the participant is also based on what is what you are transferring the asset, what is actually the partner. I think that is the issue also.
That partner we have already
take care of.
We already given them in the note.
I think next time we also that's what I said. Even 45(4), even on admission, because we are talking about admission retirement, we are talking about the end of the firm. What is the taxability in the partner? I think that is what important issue comes in next time when somebody.
I think next time yes, that is what I listed. In fact, I have given 7-8 pages on taxability in the hands of the partners.
Friends, you will agree. The Sharma ji has taken us to the minute analysis and the trade analysis of the issues on 45(4), and that has generated a very heated discussion, and the various issues have been raised by the members also. And I thank Sharmaji for valuable time, and friends, in spite of his, I was following it since Sunday. He was not well and having a minute fever for last 3 days, but in spite of that, he has a commitment toward the chamber, and he was rather, when I requested him what to do, and he said, no, I mean, I'll carry on, and we will have the meeting on the same day. So I respect, and I'll also request all members to appreciate that and acknowledge that. I also thank the Vipul Bhai for sharing his valuable knowledge and the vast experience of his practice, and resolve the various issues raised by the group leaders and also the members, and sparing his valuable time. I now request Convener Paras to make a formal vote of thanks, and then
one suggestion, considering the issues which we have got here, basically so many issues under the Partnership Act has been considered from the point of view of taxation. Of course, somebody was good enough to give some material about the Partnership Act itself. My request is after the second session of this discussion is over, we should have one study circle dealing with the Partnership Act itself, which will affect.
Okay, it's a suggestion to me because I have to carry out in the Allied Laws Committee. I will definitely, when I raised that partnership provision, I also thought of the same thing.
But in fact, I do agree with Praveen Bhai's suggestion, because unless we are clear or sure about the basic provision of Partnership Act, I think let that be the first stage. And having understood the nicety of Partnership Act, I think then we will be able to appreciate 45, 3 or 4, whatever, for the subject of convenience of the organizers.
Okay.
Before I start with the word of thanks, just a gentle reminder that the March 2014 has ended, so your subscriptions must have ended. So I request you all to renew the subscriptions, so that will, and your response will give us an energy again to conduct such charismatic study circle meetings and the groups. With this, a sincere word of thanks to Mr. Sharma and also Mr. Vipul Joshi. Mr. Sharma, though he has been not well since last 3 days, he is the person which I have been seeing. He attends all the meetings, he is updated with all the case laws. He actually is the one who starts with the issues, and he keeps them the flow proper. He is a true Chamberian, I say, for the Chamber of Income Tax. He is a true Chamberian, as we say. He has minutely dissected the issues. The problem with the issues under 45(4) is basically there is a mismatch between the Partnership Act as per the general law and the Income Tax Act. So he has minutely tried to bring a balance between the acts, and he has brought out the issues which we face day to day. I request you all with the hardest word of, I request you all with a great loud applause with the hardest word of. I also thank Mr. Vipul Joshi for chairing the session and giving his